Well, hello, you guys. Welcome back to our channel.
Welcome back to channel, everyone, where Tori and I want to share our heart on a few things. There's been some stuff brewing and some stuff that we've been kind of thinking on, and we've honestly been asking ourselves the question, like, why haven't we been posting more frequently? And we kind of want to get to the bottom of it, but we also want to share that along with some encouragement for you all, because after all, that's so much the heart of this channel. But before that, I did want to talk about today's sponsor, which is Monorail, which is America's investing app. They're honestly one of the biggest supporters of our channel. And before your eyes glaze over, I just want to encourage you in a few things. A lot of us put weight on making small changes that create a big difference. We always talk about these things. You see so many videos on YouTube, you talk to your friends, like, okay, if you work out for 30 minutes a day, if you start eating healthier, if you start journaling, for 15 minutes a day, or there's so many different habits that you can create in your life. They create a massive change. But when it comes to the topic of investing or planning for your future, a lot of us feel ill-equipped. We feel not ready. We're like, okay, well, once I'm earning more, or once I'm out of debt, or once I'm there, I'll start. But let me tell you, there's no better time to start investing than now, especially while the market's down. And that's why Tori and I are excited to talk to you about what Monorail is, which again is America's investing app, which basically means that they share the same core values as us believers, and they make it so simple. One of the things that they do to make things simple on us and to get started now is they set up recurring investments. So for example, Tori and I just set up a recurring investment. Now that the app is live, because remember last month we talked about it, there was a wait list. Now the app's live. We set up a recurring investment of $5 a day per person, which is the cost of a cup of coffee a day, because we want to see the big impact that small expenses have whenever they go from an expense to an investment. And that's probably something I'm so passionate about. But if you guys just want to go check out their website, even they have a ton of blogs, a few of which are like ways to fight retail therapy, which is honestly something I think I struggle with more than you. I'm definitely the spender.
You're the spender, but I will say that I struggle more with retail therapy, as in it's more of like an emotional thing. Where it's like, oh, I'm feeling down, I want to go walk around the mall, or like walk around Hobby Lobby.
I just get on Amazon. But they have other blogs like on how to continue to save money while experiencing FOMO, because we all have the fear of missing out, and there's times where maybe we should save more, but we don't want to miss that dinner with friends. We don't want to live that life where we feel like we're constantly missing out. So there's tons of ways that they encourage people in their 20s and 30s to start saving money and start investing now. And even in a few months, they're going to release their Patriot portfolio and other portfolios, which are professionally managed portfolios of all the best performing companies that align with your values. So I'm going to give you guys a link to go check out the blogs and also to go download the app. They're a huge supporter of us, and we appreciate you guys supporting them.
Yes. Honestly, this is not something I was planning on talking about, but it just reminds me of the parable in the Bible about stewarding the talents. And we can either bury our talents because we want to hoard them, or we can invest them and watch God multiply them. And so I really think investing is partially like a trust game too. It's I need to surrender this over to the Lord and trust that He's gonna He can multiply it.
Well, I was just in my men's group in Austin, Texas, and one of the things that we kept talking about is that the seeds that you plant now will be trees that your grandchildren sit under. And so a lot of us don't understand the small habits that we're creating, the way you're breaking generational curses in your family lineage. And every different decision you're making is actually going to impact the generations behind you. And so even if it doesn't feel like you're ready to start, those things will have a compounding impact even on your children and their children. So there's so much weight and power to that. So anyways, I just get really excited about it. It empowers me to live outside my immediate impulses, which is go buy that thing on Amazon, go spend money at a coffee shop, go do this, go do that. And it really gets me excited because now I see where those small investments are going to have a big impact.
Yeah, and it is so easy. I was actually watching one of Melena's videos recently, because something that's been on our heart the whole year is this whole idea of simplifying. And it's really hard when everything is at our fingertips, and I'm like, oh, I need this, oh, I need that, oh, I need this, and there's the buy now button on Amazon. And she encouraged to, instead of buy now, add to cart, and then go back 3 days from now and be like, do I actually like need this? And she said she went from like 10 things in her cart to 2 things in her cart.
Nice.
She was like, I actually didn't need everything I thought I needed. And so I've been doing that, and I can tell you I've deleted so many things because I genuinely don't really need them, even though I think I do. But anyways, this whole video, Chad and I really just wanted to like share some things that God has been revealing to us, teaching us. We were out of town in Texas for 2 weeks. We had the EXO marriage conferences, which you guys know is just such a joy for Chad and I to be a part of. And then Chad also, like he mentioned, just had his men's retreat. And because of that, we just realized like, man, we have not been on YouTube. Like, what is going on? Why do we always feel constantly behind? Like, we want to be creating videos for you guys. And so first and foremost, we apologize that we haven't been like showing up on a consistent basis like we thought we could. Thank you guys for your grace inside of that. But when I was talking to the Lord about it, I just realized that like my mentality recently, and y'all have probably even noticed, especially if you follow over on Instagram, I keep asking the question. I'm like, what do y'all want to see? What do y'all want to see? What do y'all want to see? And the Lord convicted me. He's like, you keep asking your audience what they want to see, but you're not asking me what they actually need. And it was really convicting for me because there's that verse in 2 Timothy, and I'm actually going to read it for you guys because it was actually talked about at EXO, so it was like this confirmation for me when it was spoken. So it's 2 Timothy 4, 3-4, and it says this: "For a time is coming when people will no longer listen to sound and wholesome teaching. They will follow their own desires and will look for teachers who will tell them whatever their itching ears want to hear. They will reject the truth and chase after myths." And then something else that was talked about that was also like another conviction / confirmation for me. Dave and Ashley Willis, they had this whole talk on the power of your words, and this thought about speaking empty words came up. And this verse is Matthew 12, verse 36 and 37, and says this: "But I tell you that everyone will have to give an account on the day of judgment for every empty word they have spoken. For by your words you will be acquitted, and by your words you will be condemned." And I know for me, like if every word I ever spoke was broadcast on our YouTube channel, I would probably be very embarrassed by that. Like it wouldn't necessarily be a good thing. And praise the Lord for the grace of God that covers our iniquities, that covers our sins, that covers our transgressions. But I want to like make sure that we're not getting on YouTube and just spitting out empty words for the sake of like
it's trending
or it's like getting content out. And I want to make sure that we're actually serving you guys and we're bringing you content that is going to equip you, encourage you, and empower you to live out the calling that God has on your life specifically. And I don't know, it's just it's a weird tension that we live in. Like just to kind of bring you behind the curtain, behind the veil. It's like, this is what we do for a living. This is our job, and we need to get content out there, and we want you guys to see behind the scenes of our life. But we're also in a very new season of being new parents and figuring out what our new normal looks like, and trying to figure out like, okay, well, Mike is napping now, so we're gonna sit down and do a video, and wait, what's wrong with the lighting, all this stuff. And sometimes it just isn't as like easy as we want to, or as we want it to be. But then further down in 2 Timothy, it actually says, don't be afraid of suffering for the Lord. And this is a concept Chad and I were actually talking about last night, because I was having like an emotional breakdown because we got home, we had a lot to do. And I've just noticed postpartum, I get overwhelmed so much faster than I used to. Like I just feel like I go from like doing completely fine to like I have like one thing for work to do, and I also have to take care of Micah. It's never just one thing, but I just feel like I get like paralyzed inside of like what I have going on, and it keeps me from moving forward. And there's a part of me that like doesn't want to suffer, right? Like I just I just want things to be easy. And I think that a lot of us kind of struggle with that. But the beauty of it, and in the encouragement that I'm sure you can share a little bit more on, is sometimes we're like scared of suffering. Like we don't want to push through the hard to get to what God is actually like calling us to. And so anyways, do you want to share kind of like what you were sharing with me last night?
Yeah, sorry, I was just looking up scripture. The main thing for me, and honestly, Tori and I got into a fight last night, and it got to a point where we were raising our voice where it was like unhealthy. It was not like, what's the difference between like a fight and, yeah, it was like, some people call it intense fellowship. I got to a point where I was like, I want you to know I'm not arguing against you. I'm arguing for you right now. And that was a big, I think, shift in the tone of the room, because she was receiving my tone as if I'm attacking her. And now granted, I should have checked my tone. That's a whole different side. But I had her to know that I was angry on her behalf, not angry at her. And there's a big difference there, because I saw her
fighting against myself.
Yeah, fighting against herself for making things more difficult than she needed to, and getting in her head and causing different shame things to pop up. And I was just like, yeah, this is not who you are. And one of the things that I reminded her of is James chapter 1 verses 2, 3, and 4, and it says this: Dear brothers and sisters, when troubles of any kind come your way, consider it an opportunity for great joy. That's not happiness, that's great joy. For you know that when your faith is tested, your endurance has a chance to grow. So let it grow. For when your endurance is fully developed, you will be perfect, complete, and needing nothing. And that's in the completion of Christ. Right. But it says when you go through troubles of any kind, that's not just when Mike is screaming. That's not just whenever you're going through a heartbreak. That's not just when you have trouble paying rent. That's anything. And it's saying, consider it joy, because now you're going to grow in endurance. And it said, let it grow. That means you're sitting inside that hardship and you're saying, okay, I'm going to persevere with Christ through this thing. And that's so powerful, because we all can wish and dream for a perfect life, but none of us are promised that. Honestly, we are promised hardship. There's a reason why scripture says when you go through troubles of any kind. It doesn't say when your life is perfectly perfect all the perfect time. It doesn't say that at all. And so I think a lot of us are just kind of trying to escape hardships versus persevere during them. And I wanted her to know that, like, when Christ says to the verse I was saved to in a public library, when I was snot crying on this desk and people were looking at me like, what's going on? So when I read that verse, 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verses 9, 10, 11, it says, for my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in your weakness. Therefore, I delight in my weaknesses. And so I think we just have this thing wrong where we're like, we need to hide our weakness. We need to lift ourselves up in our strengths, which makes sense, right? When you want to pursue a career, I'm good at this, this, and this. I'm not good at this, this, and this. So I want to go for the job that's going to maximize my talents. But where in the Bible have we ever seen someone who their talent pushes them through a situation? David and Goliath. He was a man of small stature. He wasn't invited to even test out to be the king, and yet God exalted him. God used his weaknesses and exalted him to a place of glory, and it was for God's glory. And so I just think that we have to change our mindset when it comes to persevering in hardships. Understand that life gets hard on all of us. Right now, I can count on two hands all of our friends and community that are going through seriously tough times. And I know that you all have the same people in your life that need our prayer, and we need to persevere with them. And I think where I'm really getting to in this whole thing is that I think we can start to live in that victim mindset. I'm not saying you are doing that, but what I am saying is I think we can become overwhelmed by hardship, that we just become paralyzed from doing anything. And honestly, that's what the enemy wants. That's what the enemy wants. And you cannot give him that.
And you shared that story. actually were reading this in a devotional we were doing over on Mornings with the Masters recently, where there was this little kid at Disney World and he scraped his knee and he's like having a full-blown meltdown in the middle of Disney, and he forgets all the magic around him because all he can focus on is the pain of his scraped knee. And I kind of feel like that's what was happening to me last night, where it's like I couldn't focus on all of the blessing and the beauty around me because I was so focused on this one thing that was leaving me overwhelmed. And
we literally started naming things that we should be so grateful for.
Yeah, Chad was like, we're going to sit down for the next 15 minutes and we're going to go back and forth and just call out the things that we're grateful for in our life. And it really alleviated so much of the tension, so much of the pressure. We ended up smiling, we ended up laughing. Like it just broke the tension and the darkness, honestly, that was like in the room because of the cloud over me in that moment. And so I just encourage you, like if you feel like you're having one of those days where you're tired, and because I will tell you, it's when I'm tired that I get attacked the hardest. And we just came off of a 2-week trip with a new baby and everything else, and we didn't really get like a day to reset. Like we had to just kind of jump back into things, and we had a rougher night with Micah. So I was like at my limit of exhaustion, and that's always when the enemy attacks me, is when I am like exhausted. I am like the worst version of myself when I am just tired. And when you're a new parent, you're tired often. So I feel like that's partially just one of the reasons I've like struggled more lately, is just full-blown exhaustion. But anyways,
well, I want to touch on that real quick.
Yeah,
I'm going to cut her off anyways.
Cut me off because I forgot where I was going.
And I'm not trying to call you out in front of all these lovely people, but I do think it's worth mentioning that you do struggle with perfectionism at times, all the time, and
it's my like biggest struggle.
By the way, we talk about this.
Y'all know that.
So I'm not doing this live, although it is live. So I think what's hard for Tori is that when she can't be who she was, she carries that weight and treats it as if she's failing. And I remember I said to you while we were hugging in the room, I said, what mother of a 3-month-old is not exhausted? Show me one and I'll show you a liar. You know, and so I think sometimes she struggles because she knows who she has been in terms of energy levels and ability to performance and stuff like that. But the thing is you're in a different place. And honestly, that 3-month-old, the reason why you're tired is also the biggest blessing in her life.
Exactly.
And she knows that. And so, but I think it was this whole idea of like carrying the weight that you shouldn't even be carrying. Like, why are you carrying that? You should not feel bad about where you're at in your life. And you all are carrying things. We're all carrying things. And you shouldn't have to apologize that you're not your best version of yourself, because God is constantly perfecting you and you're working on things. You're working things out. But the moment we fail to work on things or we stop having a desire to work on things is when things get bad. And so,
or we don't give it to the Lord, because the Lord is the one who covers our weaknesses. And I think that was kind of what was revealed to me a lot as well, like as we were going back and forth and talking about what we were grateful for, which was, train of thought just came back, encouragement to you guys if you do feel like you are in that season of just tired and overwhelmed. Truly, I know we say this all the time, but like actually write down a list of all the blessings in your life. Like actually physically get out a pen and paper and write down every way that God is like so prominent in your life and all the blessings that you have, because it is the easiest way to like switch your brain, like truly. And you might not even be like, oh, now I feel super energized and I'm so happy and all the things after the list is done. But there is something where like you get really upset and competitive with the enemy, because you go from focusing on this thing and then you're like, no, this is what I should focus on. And I will tell you, whatever you focus on is what gets magnified in your brain. And so the reason I was so like upset and distraught is because all I could focus on was my failure, and that's what was magnified in my brain, versus when I focus on all the blessings in my life, that is what gets magnified in my brain. And so,
and you can't control everything. I remember while we were just in Texas, I had to get up on stage with Tori and we had to speak a little bit, and I get very nervous about that. Tori's so much more comfortable than I am. that I work myself up so much that I break out with cold sores. And I get so frustrated because then I'm like, oh, well, now I don't want to show up on social media. I don't want to create videos because I don't want this thing on my lip and all this stuff. But this was the first time I think I didn't even bat an eye that it popped up. And first time in a long time where I was just like.
Yeah, you normally get pretty worked up.
Because there's a whole point to this.
Yeah.
I get so worked up and it leads me into frustration, which leads me into maybe gluttony. Like I love to eat sweet food. I love like Snickers and stuff like that. Which leads me to getting this like sugar crash, and now I feel lethargic, which leads me lower and lower and lower, and it becomes this thing. But whenever you start seriously treasuring where God has you in your life, that doesn't mean that you have to be happy about it, but you start counting your blessings. Yeah. I think what happens is you cut the negative talk trail. You cut the negative talk track. Yeah. You cut it off where you can't keep spiraling down. Yeah. And even though you're not like insanely happy and jumping with joy, you stop yourself from falling further into that dark hole that you sometimes want to fall into. Yeah. And so, I mean, like, I know there's times I want to be mad.
Yeah. Chad last night kept saying, I feel like you just want to be upset. And there was a part of me that's like, yeah, I just want to sit in my feelings. Let me sit in my feelings. But like, he also knows that I don't do well just sitting in my feelings. And I've told him before, by the way, this is like communication tip for relationships. He asked me, do you want me to let you sit in your feelings or do you want me to talk you out of it? And I'm like, talk me out of it.
She said, talk me out of it. So we talked for an hour.
Yeah. But even though like the reality of the situation is I wanted to just sit there, but like my logic kicked in. I'm like, no. It'll be much better if you talk me out of this. Yeah. And so anyways, I feel like we're getting on a little spiral, but the hope of this video is to encourage you guys and let you know where we've been, and hopefully moving forward, we will get more consistent back on here. But just to share our hearts is that we don't want to bring you just empty content. Empty
words. And the only way that we cannot bring empty words is if we're full ourselves. And that's why typically when we come back from the conference chains, we're like, oh my gosh, I have so much to share. But we're going to try to think of some ways where we can even implement maybe one day a week where we're just filling the tank to share.
But get ready for some like relationship content too, because we have so many notes from our EXO conferences to share, and Chad has so many notes from his men's group to share. So there will be a lot more videos.
And we have a vlog coming out from our Texas trip, which we think you guys will really love.
Our first trip with Mike.
It was a whirlwind of a trip. It was great, but
I will say some of the biggest advice I got for travel did not work with our child. Yeah. So we'll share that.
We'll share it. Anyways, definitely go check out the Monorail America's Investing app. Again, there's a link in the description to download the app on both Android and Apple. But then also, I'll just link some of the other blogs. That way you guys can check them out and see how they're just trying to encourage you in this mindset. Go check them out. And we love you guys.
Maybe comment something below that you're grateful for.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Love you guys.
Micah is crying.